And of course, the warmer temperature will cause the sea level rising. Here, I want to emphasize the rising sea level erodes beaches and coastal wetlands, so we are losing some of the ecosystems, and the hurricanes will become more severe, and the flooding will become more devastating. I want to point out 50 centimeter rise will cause big loss of coastal land in North America, and it was estimated by 2100 the sea level will rise by 26 to 98 centimeters. So that's a lot of rising of the sea level. And this is a picture of the flooding from Hurricane Sandy. The third consequence I want to discuss is the health effects. So for time's sake, I only summarize three major impacts here. Heat affects health, so when the heat waves comes, more people die. And the heat affects air pollution. As we did the exercise in Annenberg, the heat makes the photochemical smog worse. And also sometimes we have this thermal inversion and trap the air pollutants close to the surface of the ground. That is a serious issue. And the heat also causes generation of the ground level ozone, which is very harmful for humans' health. And the tropical diseases could migrate to former temperate area. So those diseases mainly are vector-borne diseases like malaria carried by mosquitoes. So those diseases used to be in the tropical areas. Because of the global warming, it will migrate to some of the semi-dry area. The third consequence here, changes to ecosystem, and we talked about this already. It will cause a new distribution of organisms, and some of the low-lying islands and the shorelines will suffer from the rising of the sea level, and the coral reefs will bleach because of the warming of the currents. As to challenge to agriculture and the food supply, the drought and the heat stress will increase, and that's a really bad thing. And some of the regions will receive more rainfall and the other regions will not. So we expect the areas receiving the increased rainfall probably have better yield, but actually it's not, because episodes of severe weather will cause more crop damage and reduce flexibility in crop distribution and increase irrigation demands. This will cause a huge increase of the water for irrigation. And expansion of the geographic ranges of insect pests will also increase, so that will shift the pest patterns because of the warmer climate. So how do we, as humans, what can we do to address the global climate change? So the most important actions I want to emphasize is to use your energy smartly and use more green energy. Even without this energy, without these global warming issues, it is still smart to use less energy, have a smaller energy bills. So improving energy efficiency has a double impact of reducing carbon dioxide release and conserving the shrinking supplies of energy resources. One way to stimulate a move toward greater efficiency will be from the government that to replace a tax. So we use economic means to control the energy use. And in some area of the country is progressing pretty well, but in some other area of the country, it is not making significant progress yet because of the economic impacts and people's traditional ideas. But it is very effective to place a tax. Successful examples will be some of the European countries place tax on the gasoline, right? Use of some of the resources. And the greater energy efficiency will lead to reduced air pollution. Needless to say, after we study all those chapters, it reduces air pollution and reduce carbon dioxide emissions. So the second thing we can do is plant trees. So forest is a big carbon sink, and they absorb carbon, produce oxygen. Is like the lungs of the planet. So to keep those forests, right, not to cut them off, not to burn them massively for agricultural purposes, that will be a smart way to change the climate in a positive direction. And we can improve our technology always, right, to enable more people to use those smart energy, to use more renewable energy, like wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, and the nuclear power. They do not produce environmental pollutants, and they do not produce carbon dioxide. That's a win-win. So the last thing in this chapter I want to mention, I definitely want you to understand, because this is my test point, okay? So as humans, what we did on a global scale to control this climate change. The first thing I want to mention is 1987, the Montreal Protocol. The goal is a sharp reduction of CFCs. So that not only benefit the ozone layer, but also keep the global warming under control. The second international agreement I want to mention, and I strongly encourage you to read the textbook, page 418 to 420, because this is important. We face this huge problem. What can we do? This is what we did. And in the future, you may be inspired to do more smarter things and have more determination to change some things that is not right. So the 1997 Kyoto Protocol, the main goal is to control the greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, for the developed countries, the goal is to control the emissions of a significant percentage below 1990 levels. And for developing countries, because of lack of money, lack of techniques, and because they are still going through this population growth, so they need a lot of funding to implement those goals. So they do not have a binding targets to meet. Still, that is a big effort, and the outcome is European countries are very successful. Many of the heavily industrial countries are actively promoting changes that reduce greenhouse emission, and one good example is Germany. And this protocol expired in 2012, and most of the countries agreed that to extend it to 2020, which is this year. Probably will get extended again. And the 2015 Paris Agreement continuously addressing the challenges. So the major goal of this protocol is to control the global temperature increase under 2 degrees Celsius. And we are striving for 1.5 degrees Celsius. And control greenhouse gases, right? They have more specific goals, and they have this definition of NDCs. NDC is nationally determined contributions. And remember, the developing country do not have specific targets. So in this protocol, it's addressing this problem and sort of designate like certain load of carbon emissions to different countries. And the developing countries start receiving funds from Green Climate Fund, and the goal is 100 billion per year. But